Allman in the morning. Common Sense Radio.
I'm sorry. I'm just so busy. I'm preoccupied with Gilligan's Island, Marianne, and the New York Times, and the police, and Chris Christie getting called a name on the radio. And replaying all my bumper music. I got to tell you. Did you see that video from Hamburg where the protesters stood in front of the police cars? The guy gets out. They're standing, the black bloc guys, the same ones who are going to prison in D.C. They get out of there. And the police officer gets out of the car, goes over, and basically forcibly removes the protester from the front of the car.
Everybody loved it.
It would never be acceptable here in Missouri or in St. Louis for that matter, but that's the way it is. But look at that video and dream on.
It's funny. So funny.
Meanwhile, Governor Greitens calling out the cavalry, so to speak, to fight crime in the city of St. Louis. And as you all know, it's been really a very violent year. And the governor, as you would expect, Governor Greitens, that is, would pop in and say, something's got to be done. Action Jackson. He's with me right now at Eric Greitens. Governor Eric Greitens, welcome to the show.
Hey, Jamie. Great to be on with you. Thanks for having me this morning.
Well, I have to tell you, this is something new for Missourians and indeed St. Louisans, and that is, instead of us continuing to kind of wallow in this misery and keep trying to figure out what's going on, you decided to step in and say, I'll figure something out here along with law enforcement and the mayor and get something done here.
That's exactly right, Jamie. I mean, enough ignoring the problem, enough complaining about it, enough of people talking about it and talking about it and just standing back. We are taking action, and I am so proud to tell you, I was out Sunday night. We're bringing in a special operations unit of the Missouri State Highway Patrol. These men and women are all volunteers. They signed up for this operation, and in their first night alone, when I was out working with these guys, watching their professionalism, their willingness to go out and to proactively police dozens of felony arrest warrants, drug stops, pull drunk drivers off of the streets, we are taking strong action. We are also, for the first time in Missouri's history, James, we are working in conjunction with the FBI and the DEA. They have something called their Mission Save Task Force, which is targeted on bringing the most violent offenders off of the street. This is work to reduce crime in other cities, and we're going to do this now here in the state of Missouri.
So these guys, how does the Mission Save work? How do you know who these people are? Are there warrants out there, or how does that work?
Well, here's the good news, Jamie, is that there's actually a lot of very good intelligence that the FBI has, that the Drug Enforcement Administration has, about what's happening in St. Louis and around the state of Missouri. But for too long, the state of Missouri hasn't been actively coordinating with, sharing intelligence, and coordinating operations at a strategic, operational, and tactical level. And now we're doing that. Now we're bringing together federal law enforcement, state law enforcement, and local law enforcement so that we can actually target the operations of these most violent offenders. And I got to tell you, I was also sat down the other night with Chief O'Toole, St. Louis City, Chief Belmar, St. Louis County. These guys are now working together in a way that is unprecedented. And I've told everybody, we're not going to solve a problem that's been created in decades in one summer, but the only thing that is unacceptable to me is more excuses and more inaction. So we're going in to do this because it's the right thing to protect people and to take back our streets.
Now, back to this drug team. These people are all volunteers?
Every single one of the members of the Missouri State Highway Patrol who signed up for this volunteered for this.
Wow.
They recognize that they're going to be on the streets, specifically going after some of the most violent felons in the state of Missouri, and they volunteered for this. These are men and women who signed up. And this is the thing, Jamie. We need to thank not only them, but also their families. I mean, their families every single night are waiting for that front door to open. They're waiting for that garage door to open. To know that their husband or wife, that their father or mother is coming home from duty. And I'm so proud of what these men and women are doing. The men and women of the St. Louis Police Department, St. Louis County. We've got a great law enforcement that we need to support and be proud of.
That's pretty amazing. I got to tell you, that's great that you were able to coalesce that kind of force, especially on a volunteer level. That's pretty amazing. Now, the deal about the drug team, because back in the 90s when I was working at Channel 4 and we had a huge crack problem, and that was really what was fueling all the violence on the streets then, they actually had a drug unit. They had the crack team. Well, since that time, they dismantled the drug unit, so it's great that because when I talk to people in St. Louis about the violence on the streets, that the first thing they say is that we've got to stop. That it's all against the backdrop of drug dealing, and the crack team used to go in, make arrests, get these people off the street, and now we're back to it in a different formulation. But it works. It's proven to have worked.
It's proven to have worked, and here's the other really good thing, Jamie, is that we're also bringing more than law enforcement to this problem. So, also our Department of Corrections is taking strong action. We're taking off 450 convicted criminals who they were letting before just kind of walk the streets of St. Louis. We're pulling them back in. We're making sure that if they leave, they've got a plan, they've got a purpose, they've got an interview that they're going to. There's monitoring that is being put in place. Our Department of Mental Health is coming in. The Department of Social Services is going to be working with local schools to help children in areas where there's violence. We are bringing in resources because, again, we are not going to sit back and ignore this problem. And one other note on this, Jamie. The men and women of law enforcement, they need to know that we've got their back. And I think you saw we signed just last weekend blue alert legislation. And what this does is now, and this is important for all of your listeners, we can all play a role. If anybody goes out and they're going to target and assault a law enforcement officer like Tom Lake, who was shot twice in the face, or Officer Mike Flamion, who was shot and paralyzed from the neck down, or Officer Blake Snyder, who was killed last year, if a law enforcement officer is attacked, immediately an alert is going to go out, not just to law enforcement, but to citizens across the state of Missouri so that we can help to bring those cowards to justice.
Well, and also, by the way, the element of involving the clergy and community leaders in this is important too, because these guys, for a long time, they've been talking about this for a long time, but they really haven't found a way, a true partnership and a way to coalesce what they've been telling their communities. And now, of course, you talk about backing. It's great to have this kind of backing, whether it be through social services, whether it be through the mental health and the jobs. And so, really, what happens is you can help the clergy kind of land their message.
Yes, and the thing is, the clergy are right in the middle of this. Their congregants are dealing with this. Last night, I had dinner. We've got a wonderful pastor, right, Bishop Jones, in the city of Ferguson. He brought together some mothers, fathers, and brothers who've lost their sons, who've lost brothers to violence in the city of St. Louis. And Bishop Jones, Bishop Webb runs this wonderful program called Bridging the Gap, where he brings together, as clergy members, they bring together their congregants and law enforcement. But again, for too long, people just ignored this problem. We're going out, we're bringing people together. I also sat down with business leaders, with CEOs. Everybody has a role to play in this. And you know what? We're leading on this. We're taking action to do something about it and to create safer streets.
Well, it's certainly great news. And if you don't mind, Brother Bob, who you might know, is a great guy. He's been been active in the community in terms of one of these guys, a product of the old civil rights movement, but has been out there helping young people try to contain some of what's going on out there on the streets. And I'm going to let Brother Bob give you a personal thanks, if you don't mind. I know you're kind of tight on time. But Brother Bob, you're on with the governor. Let her rip, my friend.
Say, Governor G, this is Brother Bob, and you know you have been awfully good to me and your young aide that you have been having me working with in the campaign, and we're doing a follow-up now, and we are so appreciative for you coming to the city and providing the type of leadership and the healing that we so much need here in the community. And I really like the idea of the volunteer for the Missouri State Highway Patrol, man. That was a great press conference with you and Mayor yesterday, and I'm going to stay in contact with the aide. But I'd like Missouri Department of Public Safety, where you all are sharing information with the FBI and the DEA, and to stop this dope, because most of this, as we know, problem we are having are this dope and the revenge killings that we are having. So, Governor, thank you for stepping up to the plate. We certainly appreciate it, and I'll stay in contact.
You bet, Brother Bob. Thank you so much, man. I
Thank you.
Appreciate you seeing on the front lines out there.
Yeah, he's been real. I mean, he was very active. I remember when Ferguson was blowing up.
Yep.
There was Brother Bob trying to keep the lid on some of what was going on with some of the younger activists out there. So he's a good man, and so are you, Governor Greitens. Thank you so much for joining us, and we appreciate the work you're doing.
Appreciate you, Jamie. Thanks for having me on.
All right, friend. That is Governor Eric Greitens. So there you go. There's somebody who's doing something.
Mm-hmm.